Every family has one secret they never speak of. I want to tell you about my mother. Not the version you think you know from everything I have told you so far. Not the woman who stood in the living room and told my uncle to leave. Not the woman who sat quietly after my sister told her about the blue coat and said, "He told me once, a long time ago, I told him to handle it, and he did." Not that version. I want to tell you about the version I grew up with. The real one, because before she was the woman who held this family together through 30 years of silence and secrets and a grief she never fully named. She was just a girl who fell in love with a quiet man who watched gardens and fixed things without being asked, and never once in all the years she knew him told her everything. And she loved him anyway, every single day, without conditions, without the full truth. She loved him the way you love someone when you have decided that the person in front of you is worth more than the answers you are afraid to ask for. I didn't understand that when I was young. I do now. My mother is 67 years old. She has the kind of face that has always been difficult to read. Not cold, never cold, but composed. Like a house that is always warm inside but keeps its curtains drawn. Growing up, I used to watch her the way children watch their parents when they are trying to understand what it means to be an adult. I watched her move through rooms like she had already made peace with everything in them. I watched her sit with difficult people at difficult dinners and never once let anything show on her face that she didn't choose to show. I watched her cry exactly twice in my entire childhood. Once when her own mother died, and once, and I was very small and I don't think she knew I was watching, one evening when she thought everyone was asleep. She was sitting at the kitchen table, the house was dark. She had a cup of tea in front of her that she wasn't drinking. And she was crying in the specific silent way that people cry when they have been holding something for so long that their body simply takes over without permission. I watched her from the hallway for a long time. I was too young to know what I was seeing, but I remembered it. The way my sister remembered the woman in the blue coat. The way children remember things their minds are not yet old enough to name, but their hearts are already keeping for later. There was a second letter. My father left 2 letters for my mother. The first one, the one she opened the morning after the funeral, was the one that made her walk into the living room and tell my uncle with 4 words and a face like a judge that he needed to leave. We knew about the first letter. The second one none of us knew about. It was found 3 months after the funeral by my mother herself in the drawer of my father's bedside table. A drawer she had not been able to open until then, not because it was locked, because she wasn't ready. She told me later that every time she walked past that drawer in those 3 months, she put her hand on it. Just her hand. Flat against the wood. The way you put your hand on a door before you open it. Feeling the temperature of what's on the other side before you commit to going through. On a Tuesday afternoon, 3 months after the funeral, she finally opened the drawer. The letter was there, sealed, with her name on it in his handwriting, and beneath her name in smaller letters, he had written, "Open this one alone, open this one last, and please forgive me before you finish reading it." She read it in her bedroom with the door closed and the curtains open because she told me later that she needed the light. Not electric light, real light. The kind that comes through glass and lands on the floor in shapes and moves slowly across the room as the afternoon goes on. She said, "I needed to be able to look up and see that the world outside was still going, that the trees were still there, that the light was still moving. I needed to know that whatever he had written existed inside a world that was still real and still continuing and still full of ordinary things." She was in that room for 1 hour. When she came out, her eyes were red. But she was smiling, a smile none of us had seen on her face since before my father got sick. Not a happy smile, something deeper and more complicated than happy, the smile of someone who has just been handed the last piece of something they had been trying to complete for 30 years. And it fits. Finally. It fits. She didn't tell us what was in the letter, not that day, not for a long time. She went to the kitchen. She cooked his favourite meal. She set a place for him at the table. And we all sat down together without a word and ate in silence, and it was the most peaceful evening our family had shared in years. I watched her across the table that night. She ate slowly. She looked at his empty chair twice. The second time she smiled at it. Not sadly, not with longing, with something that looked almost like completion. Like a conversation that had been going on for 30 years had finally reached its last sentence. And the last sentence was enough. It was more than enough. She told me what was in the letter 4 months later. We were sitting in the garden, the same garden my father used to watch from the window. The roses he planted were still growing. Nobody had touched them. Nobody had the heart to. We sat side by side in the 2 garden chairs he used to move into the afternoon sun without being asked, because he always knew before anyone said anything where the warmth was going to be. She held her tea with both hands, the way she always does when she is about to say something she has been preparing for a while, and she told me, not everything. She kept some of it for herself, as she should. Some things that pass between 2 people who have loved each other for 40 years belong only to them, but she told me enough. My father began the letter the way he began everything, quietly, without announcement. He wrote, I have been trying to write this letter for 11 years. 11 years of starting and stopping and folding the paper and putting it away and telling myself I would find better words next time. There are no better words, there is only the truth. And the truth is this. You knew more than you ever told me you knew. And you stayed for 40 years, with a man who didn't deserve the grace you gave him simply by remaining. I am not asking you to forgive me for what I kept from you. I know you already have. I knew it the morning I told you. I saw it in your face. The way you went very still, the way you looked at me for a long time without speaking, and then you said, handle it. 2 words. And in those 2 words you gave me back my life. You gave me back this family. You gave me back the garden and the window and the Sunday dinners and the sound of our children growing up inside these walls. You gave me back everything with 2 words, and I spent the rest of my life trying to be worthy of them. I don't know if I succeeded, but I tried. Every single day, I tried. My mother stopped there when she was telling me. She looked at the roses for a long time. Then she said, he thought I forgave him because I was strong. That was not why. I forgave him because I understood something that took me a long time to learn. People are not only the worst thing they have ever done. Your father was the man who drove through the night when my mother was sick. He was the man who learned to cook when I was too exhausted to stand. He was the man who came into our bedroom every morning for 40 years and opened the curtains because he knew I couldn't start the day without real light. He was all of those things at the same time as being the man who made a terrible mistake. And I chose every single day to love the whole of him. Not the version I wished he was. The version he actually was. Broken and good and ashamed and loving and silent and present all at once. That is what love is. Not the feeling you have when everything is easy. The decision you make every morning when it isn't. My father's letter continued. He wrote about each of us, each of his children. He wrote about watching us grow from that window into people he hadn't dared to dream we would become. He wrote about the specific pride of a quiet man who never knew how to say what he felt while he was feeling it. He wrote, I watched you become a mother. I watched you become a woman who knows her own mind. I watched you build things I never could have built. I wanted to tell you every day how proud I was. The words always stayed somewhere between my chest and my mouth and never made it out. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for every moment. I stood next to you and felt everything and said nothing. That was my great failure. Not the thing you know about, not the thing in the other letter. This, the silence between us when there should have been words. The moments I let pass because I thought there would be more of them. There are never as many moments as you think there will be. Use them. All of them. While you can. He ended the letter the way he ended everything. Simply. He wrote, the garden needs the roses cut back in October. The boiler makes a noise in cold weather that sounds worse than it is. Don't call anyone, just turn the pressure valve a quarter turn to the left. The money in the account with the blue folder is only for you. Not for the house, not for the children, for you. For something you want that you have never let yourself have because you have spent your whole life making sure everyone else had what they needed first. Buy something beautiful. You have earned it. 100 times over, you have earned everything. I love you. I should have said it more. I love you, I love you, I love you. My mother finished telling me this and looked back at the roses. She didn't cry. She had already cried everything out. Alone. In that bedroom. With the curtains open and the light moving across the floor. The way she needed it. The way he always somehow knew she would need it. I sat in that garden for a long time after she went inside. I looked at the roses he planted. I looked at the window he used to sit at. I thought about a man who carried so much for so long, and still found a way at the very end to make sure that every single person he loved had what they needed to keep going. The uncle who stole from him lost everything he had taken. The son, who made a terrible mistake, was freed from 15 years of silent imprisonment. The daughter who loved without conditions was given the chance to extend that love to someone who had never received it. The wife who stayed was finally told, in the only way he could manage, what she had always deserved to hear. And the garden, his garden, was still growing, still blooming in October when it was supposed to, still finding the light the way he always did. Quietly, without asking anyone to notice, just doing it. The way he did everything. The way he always did everything. I want to ask you something tonight. Not about secrets, not about revenge, not about the things people carry and the things they leave behind. I want to ask you about the person in your life who has stayed, through the version of you that wasn't easy to love, through the thing you did that you still can't fully forgive yourself for, through the silence when there should have been words and the words when silence would have been kinder, the person who looked at the whole of you, broken and good and ashamed and loving and silent and present all at once, and made the decision every single morning to stay. Do they know what that has meant to you? Have you told them? Not assumed they know, told them, out loud, with words that make it all the way from your chest to your mouth and out into the air where they can be heard. Tell them tonight, before you sleep. Tell them, because my father ran out of mornings before he found the right words. And he spent 11 years trying to write down what he should have simply said out loud. Don't do that. Say it now. Say it while you still can. Tell me in the comments, is there someone in your life who has stayed through something that would have made most people leave? Tell me about them. Not the mistake, not the secret, just them. Just the person who stayed. I want to hear about the people who stay. I read every comment, every single one, without judgment, always. Part 5 comes next week. The 5th letter was addressed to someone who was not in the room when the box was opened. Someone none of us had seen in over 2 years. Someone who left the day my mother said 4 words and placed a letter on a table. My uncle. His letter was the last one in the box, and it sat there untouched for 4 months while everything else unfolded, because nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody wanted to be the one to deliver it. Until my mother, on a Wednesday morning, picked it up, put it in an envelope, wrote his address on the front, and posted it herself. 3 days later, he called. He didn't speak for a long time. When he finally did, he said only this: "Is there anything left that he wanted me to do?" My mother said, "Yes. Come to the garden. The roses need cutting back in October. He always did it himself. This year, he thought maybe you could." Part 5. Next week. Subscribe. You are not ready.